everyone in that film is wearing their own boxes.
That's niche knowledge.
What other stuff they got knocking about? Gargoyles?
I mean, that's pretty close,
not
actually.
bad.
It's not bad.
Yeah, he also encounters a witch called Circe, and
Yeah.
she turns his men into pigs.
Inconvenient.
Yeah, but delicious.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to You're Dead to Me, the Radio 4 comedy podcast that takes history seriously. My name's Greg Jenner. I'm a public historian, author and broadcaster. And today we're sharpening our swords, stashing our spears and sailing the wine-dark sea back to ancient Greece to learn all about the epic poems known as the Iliad and Odyssey. And to help us on this valiant voyage, we are joined by two heroic companions in History Corner. She's senior lecturer in classics and ancient history at the University of Exeter, an expert on women in antiquity, Homer, and the modern reception of classical texts. You might have read her incredible new book, Mythica, a new history of Homer's world through the women written out of it. It's Dr. Emily Hauser. Welcome, Emily.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure to have you in. And in Comedy Corner, he's a multi-talented actor, comedian and broadcaster. You'll recognise him from hosting TV's The Great British Sewing Bee or starring in the award-winning sitcoms Ghosts, Stathlet's Flats and Man Like Mobeen. Or maybe you've delighted in watching him succeed and fail on Taskmaster. Maybe you've seen his live tour show, Cool Story Bro. But you'll definitely remember him from our episode on the Viking explorer Leif Erikson. It's the very cool Kyle Smith-Bino. Welcome back.
Thank you very much for having me again. I didn't think I was allowed back.
Oh, of course you're allowed back.
Turns out you can do anything. You can say anything and get invited back. All right.
You were great last time. You had a lot of
Thank
fun.
you.
We rummaged in the Viking Age. We did exploration
Yes.
1,000 years ago.
Yeah, that's right.
Today we are taking you even further back. What do you know about ancient Greece? The Iliad, the Odyssey, any bells?
I'm going to say Medusa. Is that anywhere near?
A little bit off. We'll get you back on track.
Thank you.
Right culture.
Yeah, right culture.
Right
yeah.
language.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, these are
Ballpark.
epic poems. So, what do you know? So this is the So What Do You Know? This is where I have a go at guessing what you, our lovely listener or viewer, hello, what you might know about today's subject. The ancient Greek geeks among you will certainly have read the Iliad and Odyssey, maybe as retold by the marvellous Stephen Fry, or perhaps in wonderful translation by Emily Wilson. That's my favourite translation. And even if you haven't read the classics, the story of the Trojan War is still everywhere in our pop culture. There are films, of course. There's 2004's Troy, starring handsome Brad Pitt, and of course now the Christopher Nolan film, The Odyssey. No comment on the helmets. I'm not getting involved. Plus, of course, you've got the Percy Jackson series. There's Madeline Miller's Song of Achilles, Margaret Atwood's feminist retelling of the Penelopiad, I think, which is the pronunciation. Am I right?
Yep, Penelopiad. Yeah.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
And there's even an anime series inspired by the Odyssey. So the plots are familiar to us, even when we don't realise it. But when were these stories first written? And by whom? And is written the right verb? And what do they reveal about Greek culture? And how many people are you allowed to slaughter and still be considered a hero? Let's find out. Right, Dr. Emily, for those who've never heard the words the Iliad or Odyssey, which maybe incorporates Kyle, I'm not sure, simply put, what are they?
Right, well, what we're looking at are epic poems that are coming from ancient Greece, and they're part of a cycle of poems, which we know as the epic cycle, that are basically telling the story of the legend of the Trojan War. So this is a legend that is kind of springing up around a city called Troy in modern sort of northwest Turkey, a massive war happening there, about 10-year war, a siege basically that the Greeks enact because Paris, the Prince of Troy, abducted, or let's put it in quotation marks, abducted Helen of Sparta, already problematically married to Menelaus. The Greeks get a bit peeved by that and they come and try and get her back. And this initiates a huge cycle of poems. Now, of those, we've got two that remain. That's the Iliad and the Odyssey. The Iliad telling a story of a couple of short weeks in the final year of the war, and the Odyssey telling the story of one man's voyage back home.
Do you know how long these poems are? Do you know how long, for example, the Iliad is?
I'm guessing, how do we even measure length?
Let's go in
Pages?
lines.
Lines.
How many lines? You know.
I want to say, I'm getting the feeling of 600.
That's a fairly long poem. Emily, it's a bit longer than that, isn't it?
It's just a bit longer, I'm afraid. The Iliad is about 15,700 lines. Yeah, no, there's a reason. There's a reason you haven't read it.
Yeah.
And the Odyssey is about 12,100
Oh,
lines.
that's better.
Yeah.
Nice, slim, simple novel. Yeah. Kyle, you are a storyteller. because Cool Story Bro, you get stories, from the audience, right?
Yeah.
What makes a story epic?
I mean, we've got to start with the beginning, middle, and end. That's
Okay.
That's a golden rule.
Sure.
And then for me personally, I want some jeopardy.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe some danger, a revelation. I need some characters. I need detail.
This is good.
That's what I like.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what is epic poetry?
It's not going to be our definition of epic, but I
Okay.
like it very much. And in fact, that beginning, middle, and end, I don't know if you know that, but Aristotle, the theorist of narrative, was the one who said that's what all good narrative has to have. So
Right.
you're in the footsteps of Aristotle. But no, so for epic, I think you can think about the way that we use epic nowadays. When we say something's epic, we mean it's kind of massive, it's huge, it's bigger than life. And that's what an epic poem is. So we talked about how long they are, thousands of lines.
Yeah.
So epic is kind of defined by its length. And later ancient poets actually talk about Homer. And they say like Homer is like the sea and we are just like little rivers that are running from it. So epic is really big. It's also telling about big themes. So it's telling about heroes and gods and monsters and sort of voyages that are sort of bigger than anything that you've experienced before. And then the last thing, which is something that I think we wouldn't normally kind of put under epic in modern terms, is the meter. Now that's hexameter, and that's basically the rhythm that you're using in the poem.
Right.
So basically, because these were oral poems initially, which is why I loved hearing you talk about your storytelling, these were done aloud, and so you'd have a rhythm that would kind of like bring everything together, and that's this hexametrical rhythm, which basically breaks the line into 6 feet.
Right. So like iambic pentameter.
That's exactly right. That's another meter. So iambic pentameter is quite natural to English. So that will be dum da dum da dum da dum da dum. It's something you hear a lot in Shakespeare. Hexameter is the meter of epic.
You named the author Homer. People at home might be going, yes, I've heard of Homer. Have you heard of Homer?
Yeah.
Not the Simpsons character?
Yeah. I don't know. I can't remember why.
Okay, all right.
But I have heard of Homer's somethings.
Maybe
Well,
the Iliad and Odyssey?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
Are we happy saying Homer wrote the Odyssey? Because, I mean, within there are sort of several questions. A, Homer, real guy. B, wrote? Is that the right verb?
First of all, wrote, probably the wrong one, because
You freestyle.
So, well, basically, yes. So this is where they started. So these poems started in an oral song culture where people would be, or you'd have bards who would be really specialising in this kind of topic, and they would be reciting what we call composing and performance. So they would be up there, a little bit like you described, kind of on the stage, in the festival, whatever it was, and they would be putting these sort of building blocks together. Now, eventually, over the centuries, those stories get handed down, and at some point they start becoming kind of performed, and they become fixed a little bit more for performance because at that point they're being recited. We then get a moment where in about the mid-6th century BCE, we've got a tyrant in Athens called Pisistratus who's really interested in kind of scripting and fixing these texts. And at that point, that's where they really start to become like fixed written texts. So it's like a gradual process of them being written down and fixed into what we now know as the Iliad and Odyssey
So
today.
maybe 200 years between the composition and the actual writing.
I'd say even more.
Oh, really?
So the roots of the oral epic go back to the 14th century BCE or earlier.
Right.
And the writing is probably around the 8th to the 6th centuries BCE
Oh, okay,
that
right,
happened. So
okay.
we've got hundreds of years of tradition and then hundreds of years of writing.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Did Homer exist? Question mark.
The ancient Greeks definitely believed that
Okay.
Homer existed. I don't know if we want to take their word for it because they also believed that the gods and goddesses existed and that Zeus swallowed his wife. So, maybe we're not going to take them too literally. But with Homer, they thought that there was this kind of one poet who wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey. For us today, I think we're thinking more of this as a tradition of multiple different itinerant bards who were really experts in their area. So when I like to think about it, I like to think about, instead of saying sort of the poet or he, I like to think of it as a collective tradition and say they, the poets. This is a
Nice.
communal tradition.
So Homer's meant to be blind, right? He's meant to be
Yes.
the blind poet,
Yeah.
Homer, and he's meant to be the Greeks believed he's the sole creator of these two poems.
Yeah.
Wait, so what's he writing about then? It's not stuff he's seen.
Well, this is kind of the point, because if you're blind, then you're kind of attuned to the power of a story and also to the influence of the muses, who were the goddesses of song, who were inspiring the bard. So this idea of kind of him being blind is very much him turning in and listening to the power of the word.
Wow.
Yeah, and I mean, the opening line is "Sing to me, O Muses," right?
Yes.
It starts by it's a song.
Yeah, well, in both of the epics, they start like that way. So we've got "Sing to me, Muse" in the Iliad, and then in the Odyssey, we've got "Tell me, Muse." So both of them very oral, spoken, and that's gesturing to the fact that they were originally sung, accompanied by a lyre. And you've got this Muse who is the goddess of song, or one of 9 goddesses of song, and is imagined to kind of inhabit the bard and relay to him all of the knowledge that he doesn't have.
It's funny that it's sing initially, and then they're like, actually, just tell me.
Yeah.
Maybe this person doesn't have a great voice. You know?
Let's downgrade him.
Yeah, 15,000 lines or something like, and then we went over here. Yeah, great. Kyle, do you know what the ancient Greek word for a poet was?
Yes, imagine.
It'd be amazing if you just break out some classical Greek now.
Ancient Greek word for a poet.
Yeah, for a travelling poet, for a person sort of on the road, stops in, tells a story, gets a free meal.
You get a free meal for telling a story?
Yeah. Yeah, you're not getting paid for your shows.
Hang on a minute.
I really hope you've got a meal for him now, Greg, after
The
this.
sandwiches outside if you want them.
Is what they get dependent on how good the story is.
I think that might be fair.
It is absolutely true. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So you've got an incentive to make sure that your songs are really
Wow.
sharp.
Yeah.
I'll be making stuff up though.
That's fine.
That's the point.
That's what they want. They want a good story.
You just say the muses told you.
Wow.
Yeah. So the Greek,
I'll have a go at that.
the Greek word, rhapsode?
Yeah, so we got several different words, but rhapsode is the word that is happening at about the time where we've got these people who are performing kind of scripts of the versions of the text. Rhapsodos in ancient Greek, and that means song stitcher, which is really fun.
Nice.
So what they're doing is they're basically sewing together different kind of parts of versions of the song. So you've got sort of like maybe, this part which is about the anger of Achilles, and then you've got this little episode that's about like a spy mission, and we're going to stitch those together and we're going to make those into a longer song.
Oh, nice. So it's not Bohemian Rhapsody, it's Athenian Rhapsody. It's,
Exactly.
It's fab, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, Alexander the Great had a copy of the Iliad, didn't he? That was his favourite book.
He did. So this was given to him by his tutor Aristotle, the guy who we were talking about earlier.
right.
And he kept the copy of the Iliad under his pillow. So
Oh, sweet.
yeah, very, very inspired by Homer.
That's
cute,
cool.
man.
It's cute, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the Iliad, the Odyssey, as we know them, are recited first, composed perhaps collectively, perhaps it's a sort of tradition of composition, perhaps there is one great blind genius, Homer, maybe not, we don't know. But they also tell of events that happened way before ancient Greece as we know it. This
That's
is
right.
the Bronze Age, the world of Mycenae and of the great heroes.
Yeah, that's right. So what we're looking at here is we're not going to be thinking about kind of epic as history, as kind of a straightforward document of what happened in the past. But what they do because of that process of handing down over generations is that they are kind of encoding memory in some way. So
Sure.
this process of songmaking is really the idea of kind of passing down a memory. And one part of those memories that they're passing down is of this Trojan War. Now, the events of the Trojan War probably took place, if they kind of really happened, around the late 13th, early 12th century BCE. So we're looking about 1200 BC, late Bronze Age, as you mentioned. And there have been attempts to kind of prove that this was true and real. My favourite example of this is the discovery of the real city of Troy. There is a real city. That is amazing. The guy who found it, Heinrich Schliemann, was absolutely obsessed with Homer, made up this kind of story later in life that he'd wanted to do this since he was a child. Absolutely wasn't true. But anyway, he got to Troy and he was in such a hurry to get to the area that he thought was the lair of Homer's Troy, that instead of waiting and digging down through the lairs as you would if you were an archaeologist, he just used dynamite.
Yeah, sometimes it's quicker though, isn't it? Sometimes you just got to get to it.
Do you know what? That would be fine if he got the right lair, but he miscalculated by 1,000 years. And so he blew through all of the lair that he wanted and ended up about 1,000 years too far in the past.
I mean,
When was this?
So this is the late 19th century.
Yeah.
So, we're
Right.
at the beginning of archaeology.
Yeah.
This guy's really not an archaeologist.
He's a German businessman.
He's a German businessman with a plan.
He just fancied...
He's been using it in his meetings. He's like, well, it works in the meetings. So it must work here.
I mean, can you imagine that episode of Time Team? Just Tony Robinson just dynamiting things. Oh, I found a Roman wall. Oh, it's on fire. Sorry. It's just amazing. So Troy is a real city. It's not called Troy because we call it the Iliad. So it's called...
Yes.
Ilion? Ilium? Ilia?
Whatever endings you like. Well, actually, yeah, Homer gives it a couple of different names. We've got Troia, which is where we get our
Oh, okay,
Troy from.
fine, that makes
But
sense.
we've also got Ilios and Ilion.
Okay.
And that's where we got the Iliad from. What's really interesting about, though, is that we have documents from around that time that talk about a city in that area called Wilusa. And we think that that word Ilios would initially have been pronounced Wilios.
Oh.
And so probably that Wilusa is actually our Troy.
So it should be the Iliad.
It should be the Iliad. Yeah, it doesn't have quite the same ring.
That sounds rude. Sorry.
The reason that's interesting to me is because my middle name is Troy.
Yeah, really?
Wow.
But I would hate if my middle name was Iliad. I'd be really annoyed if it was.
We didn't even know you were in there. I mean, that's perfect booking for us.
Yeah?
We've got an actual Trojan here.
Yeah. My dad wanted to call me Troy Smith. And my mum was like, don't be stupid.
That's amazing.
Just because she was like, that's too boring.
Yeah. Well, you should
Shout out all the
count
Troy
yourself.
Smiths.
Yeah, count yourself lucky. It wasn't Wilios.
And of course, in The Simpsons, there is Troy McClure
Yeah.
and Homer. So we've got Troy and Homer in The Simpsons, which is a nice little in-jokes. There are several layers of Troy, which may have been the classic Homeric one.
Yeah.
But earthquakes destroyed it, fires destroyed it, war, and then a German came along and dynamited it. So we're not quite sure which layers.
Yeah. He left some bits behind. So, when we're looking at those layers, there's enough we can do to work out that there was a city there that was destroyed around 1190, 1180 BC.
But he did find treasure.
Did.
He did find proper gold and lovely shiny treasure.
See, he's got something. He's onto something. You just got to start blowing stuff up, man.
I mean, the line between
See what's
pirate and
underneath.
archaeologist
Yes.
is looking quite fragile here.
For the listeners and viewers, please do not go around blowing up treasure. It's just not. Archaeologists would be very sad if you do that.
A little bit.
Yeah, he got his wife to model the treasure. It was called King Priam's treasure.
Well, he called it King Priam's treasure.
sure.
So he just found this treasure in this lair that he was convinced was Homer's Troy, even though he was 1,000 years too far in the past. Found this kind of beautiful cache of golden jewels and things, smuggled it out of Troy, illegally took it off to Athens, dressed up his wife in it, called it the Jewels of Helen of Troy, and basically sent it out to all of the newspapers in the world. At this point, facts really are just kind of, peripheral to the overall project.
Yeah.
And then what? Where does it go?
Oh, it's got a really interesting story. So basically, it goes on tour. It's exhibited.
It goes on tour?
Yeah, it does. I know. It's exhibited in the UK.
I wonder if it got
for a bit.
more audience in Fareham than I did.
Well, I don't know about that. But then it comes back and it's in Berlin and he puts it up in an exhibition where he says he wants it to be exhibited for all time. This is his kind of attempt to memorialise his name. And then after the war, it ends up getting appropriated, should we say, by Soviet troops and disappears off to Russia.
We don't know where it is.
Well, we do, because
Okay.
some Russian journalists worked incredibly hard to find it and they found it only a couple of decades ago.
Wow.
Oh. So where's it now? In a museum?
So now it's now in a museum in Russia.
Oh.
So is Troy our only evidence for an actual real Trojan war? The city of Troy, Ilion, Ilios, Wilios, whatever we're calling it. Do we have any other historical or archaeological evidence that this Bronze Age war did occur?
Well, I mentioned the sources that tell us about this town, this city called Wilusa. So those are coming from sources that are from the Hittite civilization. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they are this amazing late Bronze Age civilization in Anatolia. And they have extensive archival records. And they talk about multiple different wars that happen around this city. In fact, in one of them, you've got a power who's getting involved that are called the Achaeans in the record. And now we think that it may be that those are the same as the people who Homer calls Achaeans. That's his word for the Greeks. So
Right.
is it possible that the Achaeans, or in Greek Achaioi, are the same as the Achaeans? I think it's probable, at least.
Seems plausible, doesn't it?
And
I'm
then
going
we've got...
to say yes.
You're going to, yeah,
well, there we go.
fantastic.
It's official.
Yeah,
So
it's got the stamp. But this idea of this city that's been engaged in war multiple different times in the late Bronze Age, that has had involvement from powers of kind of the Achaeans somewhere in the Aegean. Could that be the pattern for the Greeks coming to a city like Troy? That's the idea.
And setting it on fire.
And setting it on fire.
Yeah, it's classic.
When they leave.
Let's turn to the poems themselves. We'll start with the Iliad, which effectively is Troy's story. That's what we should call it. Kyle, so what do you know about Achilles? Have you ever heard of Achilles? Have you seen the Brad Pitt movie?
I think I have seen the movie. And what I remember is Jim Howitt talking about it on set of Ghosts and saying that everyone in that film is wearing their own boxes.
That's niche knowledge.
Because when you think about it, when you watch these films and you get lost in it, you're like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. The amount of people, and this must have been so fun, so epic to film. And you think like they're all in their own pants.
I'm never going to watch it the same way again.
Whose pants do you want him to be in?
Well, no, they're not in like costume pants. They've got their own. They've probably got their own, like the pants they came in with.
They're just wearing their tighty whities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So think about that. That's my answer to that. Yeah, Achilles makes me think of the heel
Yeah.
and something to do with trainers.
Okay.
Is there like an animation where there's like someone makes Achilles trainers?
Oh, interesting. I don't know that one.
I feel like it's in Hercules, the Disney version.
I was going to say, you're
Maybe.
thinking of the sandals, I think, that they make in Hercules. The kind
I think I am thinking of that, yeah.
Yeah. So the heel, okay, we have to address the heel.
We do.
The Achilles heel, the most famous thing about him,
Yeah.
it's not in the Iliad.
It's not.
It's
No.
not in the Odyssey.
What?
No.
It's not in those 15,000 lines.
How come the heel comes later? Who adds the heel?
Yeah, well, it's a much later tradition, actually, the heel. So the story of the heel is that his mother, Thetis, who's a goddess, is desperate to make him immortal. And so she takes him to the river Styx and she dips him in the Styx. But because she's holding him by the heel doesn't kind of get dipped in this immortal water. And that's why he's invulnerable there. In the Iliad, that's absolutely not the case. It's made quite clear that he can bleed and die like any other man. The Iliad is only telling sort of a small portion of his story that's really organised around one particular episode of his rage. It doesn't tell the story of how he gets killed. And that's something that comes in a lot later and actually becomes really popular as a visual motif later in Christian art because, of course, the idea of baptism and baptism in water and the idea of Achilles being dipped in the water.
That's interesting. The plot of the Iliad it's not easy to summarise. Is there a simple way of summarising it, Emily? Is there a sort of too long didn't read 1 minute take?
Yeah, absolutely. So essentially with the Trojan War, we start with the judgment of Paris, which is a moment where three goddesses are squabbling over a golden apple that's been inscribed with the words "for the most beautiful." They all want it. They decide that a mortal has to judge between them. And so they go down to Paris, the Prince of Troy. He decides Aphrodite's the winner, not least because she bribes him with Helen, who conveniently already married to Menelaus, king of Sparta. Paris goes and takes Helen, brings her back to Troy. Menelaus, her husband, is outraged. He goes, as kind of as you would be, goes to his brother Agamemnon, who is the king of all of the Greeks, and they band together all of the Greeks. They head off to Troy on this massive expedition. 10 years of fighting around Troy. Ultimately, then, Odysseus, the trickster, has the idea of the Trojan horse. The Trojan horse gets dragged into Troy. The Greeks jump out, they burn the city down, and then they go home.
But that's not in the Iliad either. The horse isn't in the Iliad. I mean, all the best bits that we know aren't even in the story.
They're missing some stuff in there.
Yeah.
Make it longer. That's what I've always said.
Okay, where does the Trojan horse come from? That's in the Odyssey, right?
Well, it's mentioned in the Odyssey, but the story of the Trojan horse actually comes in one of these lost epics. The Judgment of Paris, the seizure of Helen, the Trojan horse, the sacking of Troy. Those are all in other epics that we've lost. So all we've got is the Iliad, which really just tells the story of Achilles' small episode in the war. Doesn't tell how he got in. It doesn't tell about his death. And then we've got the Odyssey, which tells the story of just one of the Greeks of many who were coming home after Troy.
It is quite Marvel Universe if there were only 2 films left in the Marvel Universe and you had to figure out what had happened by just watching Ant-Man. And
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not that the Iliad and the Odyssey were the 2 most important poems. It's just they're the only 2 we have.
Well, for the Greeks, they thought that they were the best.
Okay,
So that's why they were attributed to Homer. They thought he was the best poet. So, that's why they preserved them as opposed to the others who were, just by second-class poets, according to the Greeks.
The Iliad is sometimes subtitled as the wrath or the rage of Achilles.
Right.
What's he so angry about, Kyle?
Well, they didn't have Wi-Fi then. So probably that.
Right, you just can't get a connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't get a connection yesterday, and I was in Tottenham Court Road.
Right.
So imagine, I was angry, but
I mean, in 2,000 years, people will be singing of that wrath. That wrath will be sung.
The Iliad.
Yeah. Don't mind it. I don't mind that at all.
But you didn't set fire to a city.
No, I left my dynamite at home. But now I remembered. I've just been reminded to take it with me everywhere I go.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to say it's not the Wi-Fi, Emily.
It's not.
Why is Achilles so angry and wrathful and pouty?
Well, it's anger that is the subject of the Iliad. So the very first word of the epic is anger or wrath. So sing to me, goddess of the wrath of Achilles is how it starts. And he is angry because Agamemnon, the king of the Greeks, we're in the 10th year of the war. They've been fighting a lot. And during that process...
10th year of the war?
I know.
Yeah.
Pack it in, lads.
They're all exhausted. So 10 years have gone by. They are exhausted. And they, in that process, have taken a lot of cities that they've razed to the ground. They've taken a lot of women captive as slaves. And one of those women has to get returned. Her father has come and has a bit of an issue with his daughter being enslaved. And so he comes, asks for her back. Agamemnon has to give her up. And so he, in response, seizes one of Achilles' enslaved women. Her name is Briseis. And Achilles gets really peeved by this. He withdraws from the war. And when he does that, he begs Zeus, the king of the gods, to make sure that as many of the Greeks die as possible so that they all know how great he is and that they really miss him.
Wow.
Not much of a team player, is he, Achilles?
Ego. Big ego.
Yeah.
Big ego.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's giving sort of strong footballer energy. It's very Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yeah.
It's very like me and only me. So he's enslaved a woman, and then the woman has been sort of liberated, and he's angry, and so he just sort of sulks in his tent and sort of goes,
You took my slave.
You took my slave, and I'm not going to fight then.
Well, absolutely. And, she hasn't even been liberated because she's just been turned over to another Greek. So, it's absolutely, but he does, and he has kind of the biggest sulk in history, ends up causing the death of many, many different Greeks. After that, his, what we're going to call him, companion, lover, friend, Patroclus, the epic's not really clear about their relationship, but it's clear that they very, very much care about each other.
They're more than roommates,
They
aren't
are
they?
absolutely a deep, deep relationship between them. And he goes out into the battle because he gets really upset by seeing all of his companions dying. So Achilles lets Patroclus go to war. Of course, Patroclus tragically gets killed by Hector.
Wearing his armour, right? Patroclus wears Achilles' armour.
Yeah, he's dressed up as Achilles. I mean, this sense of them being kind of two halves of the same person, really, really strong. He dies in Achilles' armour. That gets taken by Hector, the Prince of Troy, who kills Patroclus. And in that, Achilles' revenge just absolutely gets stoked.
So does he think that he's killed Achilles?
Yeah, he does. Initially.
Tricked ya.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they take the helmet off and they're like, oh no, it's not Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
Okay, and so we now get the rage of Achilles, which is where he's like, vengeance mission, he's going to kill Hector.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens. He gets back into battle gear. His mum gets him divine armour. He gets all dressed up and he absolutely wipes out the battlefield. He fights with the gods, and eventually he ends up killing Hector, the one who killed Patroclus, and he doesn't stop there. Hector begged him for a burial, and instead, what does he do? He ties him to the back of his chariot, and he rolls him in the dirt and drags him around the tomb of Patroclus.
This guy's fuming, man.
Yeah, he's pretty angry.
He's really angry, isn't he?
So eventually the gods have to say, Achilles, this is enough. This is too much.
Like an intervention, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Well, his mum comes down. She's, as I mentioned, a goddess. So she comes down, gives him the message and just says, Achilles, you've got to relax. You've got to just eat and drink, have some sex, and, just basically take a chill pill and stop doing this.
That's what mums are for,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
And the poem finishes not with the kind of conquest of Troy, it finishes with a funeral.
It does, yeah. It ends with the funeral of Hector, yeah.
And it's actually a very beautiful scene because Achilles hands over the body that he has desecrated to the father.
What's left of it?
What's left of Hector, to Priam, the king of Troy. And there is a funeral. And there is this sort of very moving moment of grief where both men acknowledge each other's pain.
It's incredible. Well, we've been focusing on this rage that does consume the epic, but we get to the end, and in fact, the gods have been very careful to preserve Hector's corpse. So actually, he's being kind of kept for his relatives, for his family.
That's nice of them.
It's really good. And we get to the end of the poem, and we get to a moment where, in fact, Achilles suddenly has this kind of nighttime scene with Priam, the king of Troy, who steals out of the city, comes to Achilles' tent, and he has this incredible scene where he kneels on the ground and he kisses the hands of Achilles, the man who killed his son. And he says, I am doing this because I would like to have my son's body back to bury. And they engage in this amazing kind of scene of kindness, of friendship. They share bread together. And at that point, then Priam goes home with his son's body.
And that's the end of the poem.
That is the end of the poem. They
Troy
burn Hector's body.
doesn't get conquered. The war doesn't end.
No.
So hang on, it took them 15,000 lines to get to that.
Yeah, what we've done in about 10 minutes.
I reckon I could have done that a little bit quicker.
Achilles is a hero, right? In the ancient Greek world, he's a hero. Just to sort of sum up what he's done, Kyle, He abducts a woman. He sulks when he loses her. He lets his fellow Greeks die. In fact, he asks his fellow Greeks to die. He gets his boyfriend accidentally killed, then seeks murderous vengeance and desecrates the corpse. It's not the classic hero story we're familiar with in our Hollywood movies.
Yeah, it's pretty extreme.
Yeah, he's not John McClane, is it? It's not Die Hard.
No. But I mean, Batman was a bit naughty. He's just beating up people for the fun of it.
It's sort of interesting, the word hero. It doesn't feel appropriate by our morals. So what is a Greek hero? Is it different?
Well, what's interesting is that the word is the same. So the ancient Greek word that Homer uses for hero is heros. It's where we get hero from.
Sure.
But it means something completely different. So there's a definition of the hero that I really like, which is basically it is someone who is striving for immortality and will do anything to get that. And ultimately, ironically, proves that they can't do it and dies trying.
Oh, wow.
Wow,
Yeah.
live fast or die trying.
Yeah, and that's exactly what they're doing. And they're living so fast that they actually end up bringing ruin to everyone around them. So an ancient Greek hero, if you're looking at the Iliad and the Odyssey, is actually someone who can actually destroy his community in a lot of ways. But they're doing that because that is what they need to be remembered into the future. What they want above all is glory. The word is kleos in Greek, and it means people talking about you. So the more extreme things you do, the more people are going to talk about you.
Yeah. Okay. Despite his rage issues, Achilles, does show compassion, as we say, and we get this funeral, this reconciliation, which is kind of amazing. That's the Iliad. That is the story of the Iliad. It's the story of Achilles, his rage, and I suppose his sort of brief moment of humanity at the end.
Yeah.
End of story.
Yeah.
And then we're on to the sequel poem, the Odyssey. And this is named after another great hero of the Trojan War.
So is this continuing where we left off?
Well, it's not, because in the meantime, they've already had the sack of Troy. We've had the wooden horse being taken in. We've had Troy burning. We've had all of the captives parceled out. We've got everyone on the boats. We've had a bit of a problem with Athena, who gets very angry with the Greeks. And then they all start getting sent home. So with the Odyssey, we're just seeing that point where Odysseus is now on his way home.
So I don't have to have read the first one.
Do you know what? The Odyssey actually gives you a bit of a recap.
It
So
does.
I think you'll be all right.
It actually has flashback scenes, doesn't it?
does.
Which feels so modern.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the Odyssey. This is Odysseus. He is one of the kind of great warriors who's gone out in this Greek mission to reclaim Helen of Troy. He's renowned for his intelligence, and he's trying to get home to his wife, and it just takes forever.
Yeah, 20 years in total. That's how long Penelope had to wait.
She must have been so bored.
Well, she had a lot of
Where's this
weaving
guy?
to keep her occupied.
So much weaving.
Which sounds really exciting.
And unweaving, of
yes,
course.
and unweaving,
Unweaving
exactly.
too.
But yeah, 10 years in the war, 10 years coming home. So
Wow,
she's had a
10
long
years
wait.
coming home.
Yeah.
Well, and then we've also got his son, Telemachus, who was a baby when he left. And by the time he comes back, is just about to become a man. So he's also been waiting for his father to come home for that amount of
So
time.
that's Tom Holland in the movie.
Yeah, exactly.
So we get this story of one man's attempt to just get home after he's already been out to war for 10 years, and it starts
Where's he coming from?
Western Turkey, so it's not that far.
No, it's not that far.
To where?
To the Ionian Islands. So that's around the other side of Greece. So he needs to go like across the Aegean, kind of around the southern Peloponnese, and then up towards the Ionian Islands.
So it's
He's
a
gone the
trip.
wrong way.
It's a trip, but it's not going to be more than a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
going to
he's
say
done it
like a
wrong.
month at sea,
Yeah,
maybe. You know, stop off, have a barbecue, but like it's.
But he goes into kind of major fantasy land. And when we start the Odyssey, we basically start with him on the island of a nymph called Calypso, where he has been for 7 years. And that's the kind of
What are you
initiating
doing on that? What are you doing over there?
point on the island.
What are you doing up on that island? I think I once went to Gatwick instead of Heathrow. And then when you realise, you're like, oh my gosh, that's so far away. So I understand maybe like 4 years.
You've experienced your own Odyssey.
Yeah. But the rest, come on.
Emily, what do we mean by nymph?
Well, the Greek word for nymph is nymphe, which means both a sort of minor goddess. It could also actually mean a bride, which tells you the way that they're thinking about these as
Sure.
sort of nubile young women who are potentially sort of lingering on islands around the Mediterranean and waiting to catch a man off guard and take him off his path.
Right. Calypso is a sort of gorgeous, eternal goddess,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
she promises to make him immortal as well. Yeah.
And she fancies him, and she's like, look, we'll be lovers.
Yeah.
I'm more beautiful than all the mortal women, so just stay here and we'll just have sex and eat fruit.
Yeah.
And he's like, maybe. But for 7 years, he sort of like doesn't leave.
Prevaricating.
Situationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
I get it.
It's a 7-year
I've been
long
there, I get it.
situation.
Yeah, it's like, I've got to get home to my wife,
Really?
But
This
really,
time I will.
This time I will. So he's stuck on Hot Nymph Island. Let's talk about the rest of the plot of the Odyssey, which is incredibly complicated. So tell us some of the plots. I mean, we can't do all of it, but just some standout.
Well, what we've got going on basically are kind of 3 different levels at the same time. We've got Odysseus starting out on Calypso's island, and he still needs to get home. So he's got the rest of his voyage to do. We've got the suitors in Ithaca, who are basically 108 men. They really want to marry Penelope, and they have basically sat themselves down in the palace at Ithaca and just don't want to leave, and they are determined to make that happen. We've then also got the teenage son, Telemachus, who goes on his own mini Odyssey. And I kind of like this because he basically wants to be like his dad. So instead of Odysseus doing an Odyssey, he's Telemachus, so he does a Telemachy. And he goes on a like mini daddy trip to try and find his father, goes to a couple of Greek palaces, and then ultimately comes back. So we've got all of those sort of 3 things happening at the same time. Odysseus, of course, like when he is on his way back, we also get him stopping off at a place called the Island of the Phaeacians, and he gives the story of his adventures, of all of the things that happened to him before he got to Calypso's island. So not only are we getting those things happening in forward progression, but we're also getting a flashback to what happened to him at Troy.
And he has all sorts of issues. Do you know any of the kind of magical creatures that stop him?
I've heard nymph already.
Yeah.
So
Hot Nymph Island,
I'm guessing it's not one of those. What other stuff they got knocking about? Gargoyles?
I mean, that's pretty close,
not
actually.
bad.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you heard of sirens?
Yes.
Yeah?
I have.
What do you know of sirens?
The ones that sing to the sailors.
That's right.
And then they get there and they eat their heads or whatever they do. What they do?
No,
when
they
get there?
don't. They don't. They just enjoy wrecking them on the rocks.
Yeah.
You sure they don't eat their heads?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that they
Okay.
don't. I mean, Homer describes them as being like bird women. So they've got sort of the heads of women, but then they've got the kind of wings and talons of birds.
Now, I've been to London Zoo at feeding time for the vultures, and they are eating heads.
Yeah.
Fair dues.
Yeah.
They got fed. When I was in drama school, we had to do like animal studies, and I chose a vulture. And then this was disgusting. They threw rabbits into the vulture, not live ones, dead ones. But you watch the vultures eat the rabbits, and they stand on them and then just like rip their heads off and then get their beak inside the body. Nasty. It's nasty stuff.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
you're telling me that sirens have got bird bodies. It's making me more inclined to think that they're eating the heads.
Okay.
So it's going to be very difficult for you to change
It's a
my
hot
mind.
take. It's a hot take.
Fair enough. There's also a cyclops.
Oh, one eye.
One eye, big old cyclops.
Sure.
Who's the son of Poseidon,
Yeah,
god
he
of the
is.
sea.
Yeah, yeah. That's kind of a big problem.
That's
for
a real
Odysseus.
issue, right,
Yeah,
isn't it?
well, because one of the reasons this is a problem
He's a
is
nepo cyclops.
he is, exactly. Well, because he really wants his father to kind of get on his side when Odysseus basically is a really, really bad guest and not only eats the Cyclops' food without asking him, but he also pierces him in the eye with a stake to blind him.
Come on, he's only got one.
Yeah, I know. But then he does this great trick as well where, he's Odysseus, so he's very clever. So he tells the Cyclops that his name is Nobody. So the Cyclops then calls out to his brothers and he says, guys, nobody's blinded me. Which,
Why are you telling me that?
yeah, I know.
not
They're like,
news.
right, thanks, back to my shepherding or whatever
Yeah.
I was doing.
Yeah.
Then Odysseus, he has this fatal kind of moment of what the Greeks would have called hubris, which is this kind of excessive pride. And he's managed to escape. He's got out by climbing underneath the sheep that the Cyclops has. So he's clung under them and got out of the cave. They get onto their ship and then he turns back and he says, I want you to know that the person who did this to you was Odysseus. Now that's really bad because then the Cyclops knows exactly who to pray to his dad Poseidon and to ask him to curse him. And that is the reason why Odysseus ends up taking so long to get home.
Yeah, of all the gods you don't want to curse you, god of the sea, when you're on a boat.
No,
come
I know.
on, mate.
Yeah.
He also encounters a witch called Circe, and
Yeah.
she turns his men into pigs.
Inconvenient.
Yeah, but delicious.
Yeah.
What I will say, though, is that after she transforms them into pigs, she transforms them back. And when they transform back, they are younger and better looking than they were before.
And they don't want to eat bacon anymore.
Yeah, and vegetarian, yeah.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is this the future of skincare?
Well, there you
Which
go,
is-
exactly. Just, a little bit of kind of pig and then back to yourself and then you're 10 years younger.
Would you do pig for a bit?
How long?
Okay.
It's not very long.
No, okay.
No, it's just enough for Odysseus and her to have a chat and a drink.
Yeah, but your version of not very long, based on how long this is.
I mean, he does end up staying with her and sleeping with her for a year.
Yeah.
So
He's not very
come on.
faithful, really. For a man trying to get back to his wife.
no.
They've got a very different version of one night stand.
Yes,
Yeah,
they have.
yeah,
There's also the sun god Helios. He gets in the way.
Is that the guy that runs EasyJet?
No.
Who's that?
A different guy who's the god of the sun who has some really nice cows.
The best cows.
The best
Sacred
cows. Sacred cows.
Yeah.
And he really doesn't want those cows to be killed. And of course, what do Odysseus's men do? They kill them and they eat them.
Because they're really hungry.
They
Yeah,
are
you would,
really
though.
hungry.
In their defense, they're really hungry.
And you don't eat pork anymore.
No, and they don't want to
Yeah.
eat the fish. They don't want to
Why?
eat
What's
fish,
wrong with
right?
fish?
Yeah.
They don't really like it. They don't
No,
fancy
no.
it.
Yeah,
Because Poseidon's been messing about with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Right.
Basically, Helios gets really annoyed, asks Zeus to kind of have a go. And so Zeus strikes them with a lightning bolt. And then Odysseus is the only one left.
Yeah.
Oh.
So he's this sort of great captain. He's this great warrior. He's this great hero. But he gets all of his men killed.
Yeah.
Every single one of them.
Yeah.
And he only survives because he's so smart and he's the guy who came up with the Trojan horse. He's the kind of genius strategist, right? He does get home eventually. And Penelope, his wife...
I'd have even forgotten where I lived by then.
yeah. He gets
I'll
back...
just get a new house.
He gets back to Ithaca and Penelope doesn't recognize him
Yeah, fair enough.
because he goes in disguise.
Yeah, well, this is the question. Doesn't she recognize him? So when he rocks up on Ithaca after 20 years, Athena, the goddess, who is basically his patron goddess because she is the goddess of cunning and wisdom, and that's exactly who he is, she meets him on the shore and she turns him into an old beggar to disguise him because obviously what he's got to do is he's got to make sure he's got all of his allies around him before he tries to get back into the house at Ithaca. He's come after 20 years. Nobody knows who he is. But yeah, so he kind of comes up to the palace disguised as a beggar, and they have these really great moments of conversation between Penelope and Odysseus, the beggar, where Penelope says things like, "Oh, beggar, your hands look so similar to my husband's hands," or yeah, exactly.
Whoops.
There are these moments where it's like near misses, or maybe didn't she recognize him? Yeah.
He does effectively get rid of the 108 suitors.
Yeah.
Penelope sort of sets a contest, right, with the bow.
So this is another one of these convenient things that happens, is that Odysseus, the beggar, happens to be in the palace. And on that day, she decides that actually she's going to give up on Odysseus and she's going to set a contest for her
you
hand
would,
in
though.
marriage.
To be fair to her, she waited for ages.
She did, yeah. It just is very convenient that it happened at the point that he's there. She sets up this contest and says whoever can string Odysseus's old bow and can shoot an arrow through the axes is going to be able to be her new husband.
Right.
Of course, all of the suitors try, they fail. Odysseus steps up and is in this kind of amazing cinematic moment. He takes the bow, he strings it, he kind of turns back into himself, and then he kind of shoots it and the arrow, and then slaughter follows, and he basically just kills all of the
He
men.
kills 108 men.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
come on.
He locks the doors, makes sure they have no weapons.
Isn't he tired?
Yeah, I know.
Relax, man. you haven't seen your wife for ages. Just go do some smooching.
Yeah.
Killing everyone.
These heroes are quite uptight,
But
aren't
they
they?
stole his stuff. They stole
Yeah,
his
they
stuff.
did.
They've been on his land. They've been stealing his stuff. They've been trying
Get over
to
it.
kiss his wife.
Let
Yeah.
it go.
Okay,
Yeah. Well, he also does something worse, which is, well, I don't know if it's worse, but it's equally bad, which is that basically he kind of inculcates his teenage son Telemachus into this kind of slaughter.
I don't know this word.
Oh,
Inculcates.
basically, he kind of brings him into the world
Yeah.
of being a kind of what a hero is essentially in that time.
Right.
He needs to teach him how to do that. And in doing that, he basically says, "You've got to take the 12 enslaved women in my house who I think
I just remembered I have a
weren't-"
book here.
You're going to write it down.
I'm gonna
Oh,
write a
amazing!
book down.
I love that. That's going to be your only note for today.
Yeah. Start making those 50 minutes in. Great.
This is clearly the only clever thing I've said today.
I forgot there was a test at the end.
So basically, he makes him hang 12 of the enslaved women who Odysseus has decided were not faithful to him. And so Telemachus has to kind of string them up in the courtyard, only, I might add, after they have cleaned up the bodies of the suitors. So it's incredibly grim.
Yeah. Odysseus is meant to be the hero. And in some ways, he's a very different hero to Achilles because he's brains, not brawn.
Yeah.
And he's meant to be kind of more loyal. He's trying to get home to his wife. It's nostalgia. It's nostos, right? The pain of home.
Yeah.
But in some ways, he's equally violent.
Yeah.
He gets all his men killed. He cheats on his wife and then accuses others of being unfaithful. He's quite hypocritical.
Yeah. Well, and then we also end with this, not only this kind of mass slaughter, but then all of the families of the suitors come in and are enraged that he's just come home and killed everyone.
108 families. Like, have you seen my son?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Exactly. Awkward. And by the way, I'm Odysseus and I'm welcome home.
Sure.
Yeah. So, we have this really kind of problematic ending. But yeah, so he is in many ways like Achilles. I said, a hero. We could see a hero as a destroyer of communities. And yeah, he's lost all of his companions that he took to Troy. He's now come back and he's killed everybody. On the other hand, compared to someone like Achilles, he is, as you said, much more kind of shrewd, much more cunning, much more clever. And that's what he's known for. He has loads of epithets, which are basically adjectives through the epic that describe him as like really cunning. Polymetus is one of them, really cunning, really clever. Of course, he's got Penelope, who is equally clever, equally cunning. And she kind of matches him in his wits. So there is a different dynamic going on there.
Yeah, she spent this whole time weaving to slow down the suitors from marrying her. And then every night she unweaved everything that she weaved that day. So for 20 years, they've been sitting there going, are you done weaving yet? And she's like, no, I'm sorry. It's taken really long.
Well, I'll do it. Give it to me. I'll do it. I don't even know how to weave.
So she's equally smart. And Telemachus also is very clever. And the kind of parallels between Achilles and Odysseus, I mean, they meet, these two former friends, they meet again.
You want to do something fun. You want sort of like bowling, maybe flight club. You want an activity-based thing.
Okay, so at the darts.
Yeah, something like that.
Well, I don't know how the darts feels to you, but they meet in the underworld. Does that feel dartsy?
It doesn't feel as interactive.
Okay. Yeah. No, they meet in the underworld, and and Achilles says, I made the wrong choice.
Yeah, it's an amazing moment of kind of flashback and interacting with the Iliad. So we talked about Achilles and the Iliad, who is sort of, he ends up all out for this choice of he's going to burn out and just, kill everyone around him because he wants people to remember him. Well, in the Odyssey, Odysseus gets to talk to the spirits of the underworld, and Achilles comes up and Odysseus says, oh, look, you're king of all of the shades, well done you. And Achilles says, I would rather be the lowest labourer on the planet than the king of all of the dead.
He regrets it.
Well said.
Yeah.
But it's an amazing thing of like, okay, well, if Odysseus gets that message from Achilles, then he has sort of more knowledge than someone like Achilles did, because he knows actually what is the right choice is to get back home. So it then becomes even more urgent that he does need to get back home and try and have that long life version.
This guy's going everywhere.
Yeah. We should talk about the women in these stories. Your wonderful book, Mythica, is about women sort of written out of the story. And we've mentioned some women, Penelope, of course, the goddesses. How does this story work in terms of gender politics?
Well, obviously, we've talked a lot about how this is a story that is about the glory of men. And that's really kind of what the economy of ancient epic is. In fact, another definition I could have given you earlier when we talked about what is epic is it is the stories of men. Right. It actually calls itself that. In Greek, that's kleia andron. That means the stories of the glories of men. So women just really aren't part of that economy. In fact, what they are doing to that is that they are either helping men to do what they need to do. So think of Penelope, who helps Odysseus to basically get reinstated as the king of Ithaca, or they are obstacles to what the men need to do. And that's like Calypso and Circe, who are basically holding up, and again, I'm putting that in quotation marks, Odysseus on his way back home. So there's not that much space for them within the epics. At the same time, there are women who kind of maybe just try and get their voices heard. Helen is a really great one.
Yeah, we haven't talked about Helen.
No.
I mean, in traditional storytelling, she elopes with Paris. Like, she runs away with him. It's like, woo, let's get married and run away together. But in the way you told it, it made it sound like she didn't have a choice and Paris sort of grabbed her.
Well, she kind of tells different versions of the story, which is really interesting. So sometimes she talks about herself being unwilling and that she didn't want to go. At other times, she blames herself and she says, I was the reason that the Trojan War happened and I feel awful about it. In fact, when Telemachus does his mini Telemachy and he goes on his trip, he goes to Sparta and he sees Helen and Menelaus. Like, now we're after the Trojan War. Helen's got back home to be with Menelaus, her first husband again, really awkwardly playing sort of happy families, telling stories to each other about the Trojan War.
Hey, darling, do you remember that time?
Do you remember that?
Do you remember that time in the war? My face and everything. Oh,
yeah, exactly. It's really, really funny. But she actually gives them drugs to try and make them forget what happened, which I kind of think, if you're Greece's biggest homewrecker, that's what you're going to do. You're going to drug your audience.
Yeah, you've got to try everything, really. Yeah.
So it's interesting. So Helen, maybe the agency there is tricky, but the women in this story are sometimes obstacles. They're sometimes seducers. They're sometimes goddesses. But Athena is the sort of one true friend of Odysseus, at least.
She is. And in fact, she's the one who really kind of motivates the plot of the Odyssey in a lot of ways. It's the beginning of the Odyssey is her storming onto Olympus and saying to Zeus, you need to get Odysseus off the island of Calypso. So she's the one who kind of sets the narrative going. And then at the very end, when we've got the families, the suitors back on Ithaca who are kind of rising up and are really annoyed at what Odysseus has done, it's her who calms everyone down. Yeah. So she's really kind of the one who's like taking Odysseus's narrative in check and making sure everything happens right.
So there we go. We just did 27,000 words of poetry in about an hour.
So you can condense it, see?
Yeah, this sort of edited highlights. They're extraordinary stories and poems. I mean, is there anything that stood out to you? Anything that surprised you?
Yeah, a lot. Loads of it. Mainly the dynamite. I think bring back dynamite. You don't hear about dynamite anymore.
No.
It's so vintage.
Yeah.
There must still be uses for it.
I mean, yeah, maybe not on archaeological sites.
Yes.
Let's say maybe no to dynamite.
Maybe
on
in mining, but
sites,
maybe less so in science and archaeology. But but as a storyteller yourself, is there something? Yeah. Is there anything in these stories that you sort of heard and went, "Oh, that's interesting. I wouldn't have done that," or I
wouldn't have done most of it. I will say that.
But as a storyteller, I mean, in terms of the narrative, the structure of it, the flashbacks, the kind of three stories spinning simultaneously.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a lot like what we do when we're improvising. We do callbacks, and you have like flashbacks, or you have like 2 years later, someone might shout from the side of the stage.
Nice.
Things like that. But I can't believe how long this stuff took. Is that true? Are their years like our years?
We're talking about myth here, right? Like, is any of this true? Like, I think, one thing that people have talked about is, for instance, the Trojan War being 10 years. In some cultures, the idea of kind of 10 years is something that you would use for endless. So it's also just a kind of way of demarcating like a really, really big and long war.
Just a huge,
that was important.
Huge war.
Yeah.
But also 20 years away for Odysseus, and he gets back, and actually he's still kind of a young man, right? Because he left when he was like 21, 2, probably.
You again get this kind of youthfulness. So maybe he's got the Athena glow up.
Because yes, he didn't have his pig.
No, he didn't have his pig transformation. He gets his moment.
He must stink, though. After 10 years of trying to get home.
Yeah. I mean, he had some baths on the way back. He got bathed by various of his hosts.
I bet he's wearing his own underpants.
Definitely. Yeah,
At one point he wasn't. At one point he washed up naked on the shore.
That's
so
true.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he got new clothes.
All right. Well, it's been quite the ride. Marks, out of how many stars would you give the Iliad and Odyssey now?
Oh, I loved it.
Yeah?
I'm into it.
Cool.
And I really want to see this film now.
Good.
I wasn't bothered before.
Brilliant.
And now you are?
Can I give it a 4.5?
I'll take it.
I'd like to do that.
I think Homer would be pleased with that.
I think
I'm really interested about the Achilles heel thing. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That was about getting dipped in by his heel.
And it's probably more of a Roman later thing, isn't it?
Well, it's definitely the first time it comes up is a lot later than in Homer. So yeah.
The nuance window. Time now for the nuance window. This is where Kyle and I sit and snack on figs and olives and try not to turn into pigs, while Dr. Emily whips out a lyre and sings to us, oh, wonderful muse, something that we need to know about the Iliad and the Odyssey. So my stopwatch is ready. Here it is. You have 2 minutes. Take it away, Dr. Emily.
Why do we tell stories? What does a story have to do to survive nearly 3,000 years? I can't speak to 3,000 years of experience, but each time I come back to the Iliad and Odyssey in my lifetime, they mean different things to me, and each time it is a journey. As a teenager, the Odyssey to me was about Odysseus' son trying to become himself between a mother he doesn't understand and a father he doesn't know. At university, burning the candle at both ends, the Iliad was about Achilles burning out in a blaze of glory. And more recently, as a young mother, I have come to see that same epic through the eyes of his mother Thetis, the grief of losing a child too soon, the determination to do what she can for him because he matters more than anything. Literature gives you what you are looking for. And literature like the Iliad and Odyssey, that have been read across many hundreds of lifetimes, contain the lives and the thoughts, the hopes and the dreams, the paths taken by all the people before you who have read them. We mentioned Alexander the Great, who kept a copy of the Iliad beneath his pillow, and when he lived with Achilles, what he got from him was war, global conquest and glory, and a young death that burns the world with it. It is a pattern of destruction and a story that so many of us see around us today. But this is not the only story the poems hold. These are stories that were born in change, that from their oral origins were told again and again in different ways, according to who was speaking and who was listening. And in this, there is another Iliad and Odyssey, I see, a story of reconciliation, of community. a tale of warning against losing touch with the earth and the people around us. As I see it, the Iliad ends with a scene of human hope and heart that shows even the most resolute and destructive warrior, Achilles, in the dark, in his hut on the beach, with his hands kissed by the father of the man he killed, and they cry together for the families they have lost, they break bread together, and Achilles offers to Priam kindness, handing back Hector's body for the humanity of burial. So let us cry together. Let us go on that journey and hang in the balance at the end and see that these poems that have lasted several thousand years remind us that it's not easy, but you can. We can move past war and destruction. We can care for those around us. We can see through the eyes of others. And in so doing, we can read these poems as a journey towards humanity, towards heart, towards hope.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Makes me feel like I should have that at the end of my show. Everyone comes out going, yeah, that's exactly how I feel.
I'm available.
Oh, great. Want to come to Swindon?
So what do you know now? Well, it's time now for the So What Do You Know Now? So, Kyle, we've done a lot of talking. We've summarised 27,000 lines of poetry.
Easy.
Yeah. Do you feel confident? You didn't make many notes.
No, I didn't. I sort of forgot that the book was there. It kind of blended into the table a little bit.
Well, you were prioritising the oral poetry.
Yes, exactly. I was taking it in.
Yeah. You were
Is
listening.
it still in there?
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. 10 questions for you. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
Question 1. Which blind poet has traditionally been credited as the author of the Iliad and Odyssey?
Homer.
Very good. Yes. Question 2. How were the Iliad and Odyssey first communicated?
Song.
They were sung. Sung live. Question 3. What tool did Schliemann use to excavate at Troy?
Dynamite.
Yes, I think he used shovels too, but he did use dynamite, which is not tremendously helpful. Question 4. What event supposedly caused the Trojan War? There's a certain woman involved. His eyes are rolling around his face. Hopefully they won't fall out.
What event caused the Trojan War?
Who running off or being perhaps taken?
Oh, because what's his name had a slave, and then Thingy Bob took the slave off.
That's a different one. That's the start of the Iliad. I was thinking here of Helen of Troy, but that is good
We've got to
knowledge.
give him half a point.
I'm giving you
for
half a
that,
point.
yeah.
Half a point because
Okay,
you were
I'll
remembering
take that.
Briseis, weren't you? So I'll give you half of that. Question 5. What does kleos mean in ancient Greek? It's what Achilles really, really wanted. It's not in your notes.
Story.
No, it means glory. He wanted glory and fame.
You can give me half for rhyming.
Story rhymes. Okay, fine, I'm giving him half of the one.
Yes.
Okay, fine. Okay, question 6. Why do Achilles and Agamemnon fall out in the Iliad? Actually, you've already said this one.
Because he took his slave off him.
Very good. Clear. Question 6.
It's like, come on, don't get my sleeve.
Question 7. What is the name of Odysseus' faithful wife who waits 20 years for him?
Penelope.
Very good. Question 8. Name one obstacle of many obstacles that Odysseus faces on his 10-year commute home.
He had told Cyclops who blinded him, and then Cyclops said, Dad,
Very good.
that boy blinded me. And then he did some stuff to the sea.
He did. That's very good. Question 9. What famous trick did Odysseus design to get inside the walls of Troy?
They hid in a horse.
He did. The Trojan horse.
Yes.
Question 10. I think this is for 8.5 out of 10. I've lost count, to be honest.
Yeah, let's say 9.
Okay, let's say 9 out of 10. This for 9 out of 10, maybe. What regret does Achilles share with Odysseus when he meets him in the underworld?
Living too fast and dying too young.
That's right. He wanted a boring life as a farmer. I'm giving you 9 out of 10.
Yes, sir.
I think that's pretty good.
I think that's excellent. I'm very pleased.
Let's see if you can get a bonus point.
Yeah.
What was the Greek name for a wandering poet who got their free meals for a good story? Do you remember? Think famous Queen song.
Rhapsodes.
Very good. I'm giving you 10 out of 11.
Yes, sir.
Nice one, Kyle.
I'm really happy with that, actually.
Well, thank you so much, Kyle.
Thank you
so much, Emily. Listener,
you.
if you want more from Kyle, obviously check out our Leif Erikson episode. It's, more wanderings, more voyages in the Viking world. And for more epic historical poetry, we've got episodes on King Arthur and, of course, the Mesopotamian Epic of Gilgamesh, which is also very funny and surprising. And don't forget, of course, you can get episodes 28 days early on BBC Sounds, or now, for the first time, you can even watch us on BBC iPlayer. Hello, I look like this. Sorry. I'd just like to say a huge thank you to our guests in History Corner. We had the incredible Dr. Emily Hauser from the University of Exeter. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you so much. It's been so much fun.
It's been a pleasure. And in Comedy Corner, we had the brilliant Kyle Smith-Bino. Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you.
And to you, lovely listener, join me next time as we ask the historical muses to sing us another song about the past. But for now, I'm off home. Hopefully, it won't take 10 years. But you know what? British trains, it maybe will. Bye!